Hi everybody. So I am going to try to finish our book today. We only have a little bit left, only this much. So I'm going to try to start reading. I was interrupted yesterday when I was recording, so I didn't get to finish the chapter, and I left you on a cliffhanger, didn't I? So Boots and Gregor and his dad, they're all talking about how it happened, and they were starting to get together with everybody. So I'm going to start at the back, maybe a couple paragraphs behind where we were, and start from there. "Drink breakfast?" said Boots as he pulled her free. Gregor smiled. If she wanted to eat, she must be better. "Cookie?" she said hopefully. Okay, he said. "But look, who's here? It's Dada," said Gregor, pointing to his father. As they went together, maybe Gregor would have the courage to face his dad. "Dada," said Boots curiously. She looked at him, and a big smile spread across her face. "Dada," she said. She wiggled out of Gregor's grasp and ran straight into his dad's arms, knocking him flat on his back. "Margaret," he said, struggling to sit up. "Are you Margaret?" "No, I'm Boots," said the little girl, tugging at his beard. Well, Boots's courage might only count when she could count, but her ability to love counted all the time. Watching her, Gregor felt his distrust beginning to melt away. He had fought rats and spiders and his own worst fears to reunite with his dad. What was he doing, sitting here like he'd bought a ticket to see the event? He must be worried or kind of shy. He hasn't seen his dad for a long time. And he thought so he's kind of like not really sure how to act. "Boots, huh?" said his dad. He broke into a very rusty laugh. The laughter swept through Gregor like waves of sunshine. It was him. It really was his dad. "Dad!" Gregor half stumbled, half ran to his dad and threw his arms around him. "Oh, Gregor," said his dad, with tears pouring down his face. "How's my boy? How's my little girl?" Gregor just laughed as he felt his own tears starting. "What are you doing here? How did you get to the Underlands?" asked his dad, suddenly sounding worried. "Same way as you, I guess," said Gregor, finding his voice. "Fell out of the laundry room with Boots. Then we came looking for you, and here we are." He patted his dad's arm to prove it was true. "Here you are." "Where exactly is here?" asked Dad, peering around in the darkness. Gregor snapped back to reality. "We're above a waterfall in the Deadland. A bunch of rats are trying to scale the wall. A lot of us are hurt, and we're totally lost," he said. Then he regretted it. Maybe he shouldn't have told his dad how bad it was. Maybe he couldn't handle it yet. But he saw his dad's eyes sharpen in concentration. "How far are the rats from us now?" he asked. Gregor slid over to the edge and looked over. He was frightened to see the rats were halfway up the wall. "Maybe 50 feet, he said. "How about light?" asked Dad. "Only this," said Gregor, tapping his hat. "And I don't think the batteries will last much longer. In fact, the light seemed to be dimming as he spoke." "We've got to get back to Regalia," said his dad. "I know, but none of us knows where it is," said Gregor helplessly. "It's in the north of the Underland," said his dad. Gregor nodded, but he didn't see what good that information did them. It wasn't as if they had a sunset or a North Star or moss growing on the north side of the trees to guide them. They were in a big, black space. His dad's eyes landed on Aurora's wing. "The bat, that's how you sew her up?" Oh, wait, sorry. His dad's eyes landed on Aurora's wing. "The bat. How did you sew it up?" "A needle and thread," said Gregor, wondering if his dad's mind was beginning to wander again. "Metal needle?" asked his dad. "Do you still have it?" "Yeah, here," said Gregor, pulling out the pack of needles. His dad took a needle, pulled a small stone out of his pocket. He began to rub the stone along the needle in short, quick strokes. "Get some kind of bowl. Dump out the medicine if you have to," said his dad, "and fill it with water." Gregor quickly followed his instructions, still unsure. So, what are we doing?" "This rock. It's a lodestone, magnetic iron ore. There was a pile of them back in my pit. I kept one in my pocket just in case," said his dad. "Just in case of what?" asked Gregor. "Just in case I ever escaped. I had some pieces of metal back there, too." but nothing the right size. This needle is perfect. Perfect for what? Asked Gregor. If I rub the needle with the lodestone, I'll magnetize it. Basically, I'll turn it into a compass needle if we can get it to float on the water without breaking the surface tension. His dad gently slid the needle onto the water. It floated. Then, to Gregor's amazement, the needle turned 45 degrees to the right and held steady. It will point north. It's pointing north, just like a compass? Asked Gregor in astonishment. Well, it's probably off a few degrees, but it's close enough, said his dad. Gregor grinned into the bowl of water. It was going to be okay. His dad was back. The sound of claws digging into the stone wiped the grin off his face. Aurora, called Gregor. Can you fly? I think I must, said Aurora, clearly aware of the rats. Ares, if I point you toward Regalia now, can you stay on course? Asked Gregor, giving the bat a little shake. I can still well enough on course if I know the direction to fly, said Ares, rousing himself. Mount up, called Gregor, just as Vicus had when they started the quest. Mount up, we're going home. Somehow, everyone got loaded up. Gregor had Temp ride with Luxa just to keep an eye on her. He slid Boots into the backpack and helped his dad onto Ares. He checked the needle in the bowl one more time and pointed Ares in the right direction. That's north. That's the way to Regalia. Gregor was about to retrieve the bowl when he saw the first rat claw catch the top of the ledge. He leaped into Ares' back, and the bats took off, leaving the bowl and a pack of cursing rats behind. Oh, that was close. Ares followed the tunnel that headed north, and after about an hour, he called to Gregor. I know now where we fly. They flew straight to Fort Regalia now, down wide open caverns. Everywhere there were victims of the war. Gregor saw the bodies of rats, humans, roaches, spiders, bats, and other creatures he didn't even know lived in the Underland, like mice and butterflies. No Ripred had mentioned butterflies, but Gregor thought he had seen them in the Overland somehow. All the bodies looked the same. Very, very still. It was almost a relief when the light on his hard hat finally gave out. He had seen enough carnage in the darkness he lost all track of time. Gregor could hear the horns signaling their approach long before they reached the city. He looked down vaguely and saw people waving their arms, shouting. Neither he nor Luxa responded. Luxa was not even looking. From the moment they had taken off, she had wrapped her arms around Aurora's neck and closed her eyes to the world. Gregor couldn't imagine what she must be feeling. He had his dad back. Boots was safe. They would go back to the Overland and his family would be together again. But Henry was Luxa's family, and he had given her over to the rats. What was there left for Luxa to feel now? The doors were flung open at the stadium, and the city appeared below them. There was cheering and waving of flags. The palace came into view, and Ares dove for the high hall. They coasted in, and the exhausted bats simply landed on their bellies and slid along the floor until they stopped. Underlanders swarmed them. Somewhere in the confusion he saw Dulcet cradling Boots and hurrying from the hall with the ever-faithful Temp behind them. A couple of people laid his dad on the stretcher and whisked him away, too. The bats could barely protest as they were carried away, more in need of rest than medical attention. Gregor resisted all attempts to be loaded on a stretcher, although he did accept a cold cloth for his nose. Someone needed to tell the story, and he didn't think it could be Luxa right now. There she stood, pale and lost, not even noticing the whirlwind behind her. Her beautiful violet eyes were vacant, and her hands hung limply at her side. He went to stand at her side, but he didn't touch her. He just let her know he was near. Luxa. It's going to be okay, he said. He knew the words sounded hollow. The room cleared out, and he saw Vicus hurrying toward them. The old man stopped a few feet in front of them, deep lines of concern cut into his face. Gregor knew he had to say what had happened, but all that came out was, Henry was working with the rats. He made some deal for the throne. Vicus looked at Luxa and opened his arms. She stood, still frozen, staring at him as if he were a complete stranger. Luxa, It's your grandpa, said Gregor. It seemed like the best and most important thing to say at that moment. It's your grandpa. Luxa blinked. A tiny tear formed at the corner of her eye. A battle took place on her face as she tried to stop the feelings rising up inside her. The feelings won, and to Gregor's great relief, she ran to Vicus's arms. Chapter 26. I will not be finishing this chapter right now because, boys and girls, I have a Zoom with you in 5 minutes. So I will be reading until Zoom starts, and then I will try to continue when we are done. But this is the last chapter. I'm very excited. I'm sorry if I leave you on a cliffhanger. It was Solivate Gregor ended up telling the story too. She appeared shortly after Vicus, and having kissed Lux's wet cheeks, embraced Gregor. If he was not concerned about his injuries, she was. She immediately let him down to the hospital section of the palace to be treated. While doctors cleaned and stitched his leg and tried to bring down the swelling in his nose, Gregor spilled out everything that had happened since they had parted. The journey through the rancid caves, the arrival of the spiders, Henry's attempt to kill Ripred Boots' fever, Tick's sacrifice at the bridge, finding his dad, and the strange series of events that had fulfilled Sandwich's prophecy. When he had finished, he felt like a balloon someone had let all the air out of. He just wanted to see his dad and Boots and then go to sleep. Solivate led him first to Boots, who was in a nursery with other sick kids. She had been bathed and changed, and while she was still warm to the touch, Dulcet promised him the illness was not serious. We cannot cure many things still, but we can cure this. It's just a case of damp fever, she said soothingly. Gregor smoothed back Boots's curls and went on to see his dad. His father already looked better, his face relaxed in sleep. The Underlanders had not only bathed him, but they'd groomed his hair and beard. The foul rat skins had been replaced by silken garments. They'd fed him and given him a calming medicine. And when he wakes, will he be okay? Asked Gregor. No one who spends years with the rats can expect to be unchanged, said Solivate gently. But will his mind and body heal? I believe so. Gregor had to be satisfied with that. He himself would never be the same after what he witnessed in the Underland. He had to expect some changes in his dad, too. As he left the hospital, he heard a happy voice cry out, "Overlander!" Marith caught him up in a big bear hug. Gregor was glad to see Marith was alive, although he had injuries from recent battles. "Hey, Marith," he said, "how's it going?" "It goes darkly, as it always goes in war. But you have brought back light to us," he said firmly. "Oh, yeah?" said Gregor. He'd pretty much forgotten that part of the prophecy. An overland warrior, a son of the sun, may bring us back light. He may bring us back none. So he must have done it after all, brought back light. He wasn't really sure how, but if Mara said so, all the Underlanders must believe it. "What light?" he asked. The images that filled his head were relentlessly dark. When news of King Gorger's death reached the rats, they fell into chaos. "We have driven them far back into the dead land. Without a leader, they are in total disarray," said Marith. "Oh, good," said Gregor. "I hope it lasts." Marith took him to his old room, the one he'd shared with Boots. He took a short bath just to lose the smell of rotten eggs that clung to him from the dripping tunnel and fell into bed. When he awoke, he sensed he had slept a long time. For the first minute or two, he lay in drowsy security, not remembering. Then, all that had happened flashed before his eyes, and he couldn't stay in bed any longer. He took a second bath and then ate the food that had appeared in his room while he was gone. Gregor was about to go to the hospital when Luxa ran into his room. Her eyes were red from crying, but she seemed her old self. "Gregor, you must come, hurry," she said, grabbing his arm, pulling him after her. His face thought that there had been an attack on the palace, but that was not it. "It's Ares! They mean to banish him!" gasped Luxa as the two of them sprinted down the corridor. "He did not know, Gregor! He did not know of Henry's plot any more than I!" "I know he didn't," said Gregor. They burst into a room Gregor had not seen. It was like a small arena. Several hundred bats and humans sat on elevated bleachers that rose up around the central stage. In the front row sat members of the Regalia's council, including Vicus and Solivet. In the middle of the stage, alone and stooped, stood Ares. When Gregor and Luxa ran into the stage, Aurora fluttered out of the bleachers to join them. "Stop!" yelled Gregor, trying to catch his breath. "You can't do this! He didn't know in all of the ins and outs of the banishment." But he did remember Luxa saying that no one survived living in the Underland alone for long. Maybe a rat like Ripred could, but he was extraordinary under any conditions. I'm going to stop there, friends, because I'm going to start our Zoom so I can talk with you and Mr. Carls. I will read the rest of this when we are done. Thank you.